Okay, everybody, and this is what I was afraid of. We are going to zoom out for a second. Actually, we're going to have Ilya bring us in. Bring us in.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're happy to be here. It's been a whole week. We are back as we promised. Please smash that like button. Hopefully, you recommend this to your friends. Hopefully, you find our videos entertaining and informative. Well, I'm gonna have to say it for you.
Yes.
If you've been here since the beginning, you're a legend. If you're just joining, you're a bigger legend.
Don't insult the OGs.
Of course not. Thank you for joining us, guys. Um, Please consider donating to the site if possible to Patreon. Was
Patreon.
it? Yes,
Please consider
Patreon.
supporting the channel.
That's right. That's right.
Ilya, here's a question for you. What's this week's Parsha?
You had to throw me under the bus like that. You tell me, man.
This week's Parsha is Parshas Balak.
Actually, it's one of my favorite. There's a reason why.
Yes, I'd love to hear it.
Because there's a lot of mysticism, a lot of magic, a lot of those type of things going on.
Okay, explain.
We were learning that the Balak had an owl, a mechanical owl, that would fly around and see these different things and would tell him about what's going on different lands, almost like a drone. Nowadays, drone. But when it came around, when he came around to see what Moshe Rabbeinu was doing, because of all the holiness around him, he was just burned by it. You understand what I mean? The description. It's as if there's some sort of mystical powers that are around that all this negative energy can be around holiness.
Mm-hmm.
So Balak was just rejected by the whole thing.
Yeah. I
don't know about you. I grew up watching Marvel and DC and all these comics and all these animated shows, and I loved them. We grew up to them. And it was a different era. It was in the 80s and the 90s. And when you were watching cartoons like that, it was actually educational because it would expand your vocabulary. Nowadays, what kids are watching is just insane. You can't. It almost makes me want to barf. SpongeBob's and all this Disney Channel. It's just weird. The things that they're pushing, the agendas they're pushing, is just insane.
And you're saying that this content used to be.
It used to be much better
with something.
Yes, it was very educational. Even watching small things like X-Men or the Amazing Spider-Man, the villains would speak with such a deep vocabulary that the kids would learn, and your vocabulary would expand because of it. Nowadays, you watch Disney show, the way they speak, it's like uneducated people from the street. You don't learn anything from them whatsoever.
And okay, I guess. I mean, I've never.
Give it a chance. Watch one episode of X-Men from the 90s and watch the villain speak. The way he speaks, he's grammatically correct. The words he uses are big words. It expands your vocabulary. Now you watch anything, they're like, what the hell is going on here? Like, what? What is it? The way he speaks, they're not very educated.
I never. I mean,
you never paid attention to it.
Well, I didn't grow up with that stuff, number one. And whatever I have seen, I mean, it's like I hardly ever watch anything when I'm with my full attention. Like I'm always doing something, and there's something in the background. If I do, it's not something I'm proud about. Like watching movies isn't I don't believe is the greatest thing in general.
Maybe I saw it from that perspective because we were kids of immigrants and we had to learn the language. And it was a great way of learning the language and expanding your vocabulary through movies and shows that you enjoy.
Okay, that makes
nowadays I watch all these movies and shows. You don't see the same thing.
Okay, that's a whole different. That makes sense. When you don't speak the language and then you watch something, you come away with something. If you spoke English as a kid well, you wouldn't find it to be. I mean, sure, I'm sure the way they portrayed characters is different now, but I'm saying like right now you speak English, so you don't come away with it. I had friends. I remember I had friends from Argentina who told me that they learn English by reading the subtitles on English movies.
Yeah, yeah. Israelis learned the same exact way. They will watch American shows like Family Matters or Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and they would learn the language because they were watching the shows.
Well, you're going to come away with
But
something a
even
little
with
bit different
those
if you're
shows,
watching.
it's different vocabulary. It's different dialect that is used. It's very different.
I think if you're watching Fresh Prince of I don't know, how did we get here? I think if you're watching Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, you're coming away with a little bit of a different vocabulary than if you're watching something else. But
Okay.
yeah, that's just a joke. I'm just making fun. Someone's going to have a problem with it, with me saying that, I'm sure. Okay. So, Parshas Balak. Number one, I just want to say I am Yossi Lolian, one of the hosts, and
Ilyas Hakov, welcome back. I thought we already did the introduction. Really?
we did, but no, I'll tell you why, because like I wrote down over here like things I want to
you have to
include in introduction.
Okay.
No, it's what you do. Like you say, I'm Yossi Lolian.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
He had to put his name in there, so we all know who created this, guys.
Okay. End of the roast. Thank you. So, and I just want to say that also this is technically the first time I'm doing Parshas Balak because
Last year you were away.
last year I was in Israel and it was Chukas Balak, so I don't think I got to Balak itself. So this is the first time around, and
Don't blame him. He was in Israel. Every 3 steps he took was a big mitzvah. So he let this go for a bigger mitzvah.
I mean, you can blame me. Just won't really help you.
It ain't gonna help nobody.
And I just want to say also that all the Torah that we do today is in the merit of the hostages as you come home, the soldiers being
Amen.
protected, and all Am Yisrael, and all those who support Eretz Yisrael. You know, now we're seeing with I don't really want to get political, but we're just seeing tremendous support from our from you know people who are attending the RNC, the Republican side. Really special to see. I just wanted to check that. So yeah, Hashem should protect Am Yisrael and all those who support us and who are there for us in these really crazy times. Now,
Just had to throw it in there. Trump is still alive, baby.
it's true. We didn't go live since it happened.
Yeah, right.
We didn't go. I mean, we did this on Friday, and then Motzei Shabbos, right? It happened. That's really crazy. But actually, I mean, people were saying. I actually want to mention this, you know, and it has to do with also this parsha. You know, it talks about blessing and cursing. You know, and we know that originally Abraham was told those who bless the Jewish people are blessed, and those who curse the Jewish people are cursed. And we see that, you know, a lot of people were saying this, and I believe this. Donald Trump has been supportive. You know that ambulance is not going to get. No, I'm just kidding. Donald Trump has been supportive of Israel overall, in general. You know what I'm saying? For the most part, and he moved he recognized a lot of things about you know the Jewish people and their connection to the land, and even throughout this whole thing, you know, he supported Israel's you know continued effort to wage war against evil, and look what happened. His life was miraculously saved. It's still, I mean, whenever you think about it, the level of how close he was to dying, you know, and people are saying close to civil war, and who knows, but you know, turned his head a second before, and there's the animations you see, you know, you see the also, it's incredible to see that photo of the
Did you see the post where they said that the kid that tried to assassinate him was apparently Jewish with a whole yarmulke and the whole? Did you see that one?
Of course, they're saying.
And then they debunked it and said no, it's not true. He's not Jewish.
Well, it's so funny that you say that, because last week we were talking about how Jew haters will there's this thing they believe that every single crime, everything that happens bad to this country is because of Jews, and they'll like no matter what you tell them, they'll
Did the
still
hater log in? No?
what the hater? No, the hater hasn't logged in.
Damn, we should have sent him an invite. That was entertaining.
It was entertaining. Today we our audience is not as big, but at least not yet. So I just want to start off this pasuk, this parsha. We're just going to go and speak about it in a nutshell. So what is it about? Right, Balak was talking about the king of Moav, Balak, and he wanted Bilam to curse the Jewish people, and because he's afraid of the Jewish people, and also because they hate us because they ain't us.
Mm-hmm.
And Bilam goes, and his donkey doesn't want to go because he sees an angel which hasn't revealed itself to Bilam yet, and then he finally hits the donkey, and then he hits him 3 times. Sorry, no, he stops him 3 times, and he hits him.
But first, the donkey presses him against the wall.
Right, he presses him against the wall because he doesn't want to be hit by the.
But no, that was the same wall apparently where Yaakov Avinu made a pact that they weren't gonna attack each other's.
Oh, is that it too?
Yeah, so
I remember-
that was basically nullifying that contract between Avram Avinu and who did he buy the cave from? Who was that guy?
Ephraim?
The Aramean.
Ephron.
Right. So that Balak was Balaam was his descendant.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. Okay, thank you for that.
So because they had a peace treaty between Aram Avinu that he wasn't going to attack him, that they would never have a conflict.
Mhm.
So the donkey, by squeezing his leg against that wall, was a reminder that if you do this,
all bets are off.
all bets are off. Right? The contract is nullified. They now have the right to attack you and completely eradicate you if they wanted to.
Wow, thank you for that, Ilya. Thank you.
I mean, it's a reminder to all the Gazans. You should be thankful that you got land, and you should be thankful that Israel let you be there and support you and basically fed you for the last 40 years. And this is what happens. This is how you repay them.
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah, good luck with that. But history repeats itself.
Well, yeah, crazy stuff.
Poor place.
Now, then the angel says, "Why do you hit your donkey?" The donkey actually speaks. The donkey ends up
Well,
speaking.
the donkey asks, "Why do you hit me?"
Right. Yeah. The donkey said, "Why do you hit me?" And but we're going to see the Rambam learn something from that in a second. And then Bilam wants to curse every time he wants to curse. He tried 3 different times. And then every single time he blesses instead. He gives blessings. And Bilam also gives a prophecy at the end of the days when Mashiach is going to come. And then finally, we actually see that Bilam was the one who advised Balak to make the Jews sin.
Mm-hmm.
And they were ready to defile their own daughters, to have their own daughters, become promiscuous in order to make the Jewish people sin. And that's what they did. They kind of
but there's a
seduced
reason
the men
why
to sin.
why Bilam did that, because that's what gave him. That was the source of his power.
Well, no, because it's very simple. Once the Jews sin, so that's where their protection is taken away.
No, I'm talking about this. The sexual sins was the source of his power.
I mean,
because Moshe Rabbeinu was on the 49th level of holiness.
mm-hmm.
Bilam was on the 50th level of Tumah.
Yeah.
How did that happen? By him having intercourse with his donkey and doing all these weird things that were forbidden.
Really?
But that was the source of his Tumah.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. He was a sorcerer, and he was.
It was a she monkey. It was a female donkey.
Oh, we don't have to go into that.
Well, we talked about details.
Right. So
that was the source of his power.
Well, I mean, it's not surprising. I mean, he was the lowest of the low.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, both Balak and Bilam were were sorcerers, and they were obviously steeped in impurity. But this plan was partially successful, where Jews started dying, and then there was a person, actually one of the very important Jew. He did a vera. Where he was with a Midianite princess.
Oh, Zimri.
Right. He did that publicly, and when he did that, so Pinchas went and killed them both miraculously, actually, because it says I think there were 10 miracles that happened because for him to be able to pierce them both and exactly in the place of the sin, and so on and so forth. So that was a pretty miraculous. And when he did that, so the plague stopped.
Mm-hmm. The fact that there were 10 tefachim away from him, so it didn't get him tamei. The fact that the blood never dripped on him, so he never got tamei. There was a lot of miracles that had happened at the time when it happened.
Say that again.
He took a spear and he pierced through both of them, but the spear was exactly 10 tefachim long.
You mean 10 amos or 10 tefachim?
Or 10 amos.
I don't know.
I don't recall what it is. What was the standard for Kohanim to be away from a dead body, to still be pure, for the tamei not to go away? I think it was 10 tefachim.
I'm not sure, but
the spear was exactly that,
mm-hmm.
and it never bent. Not only that, when he picked him up, the blood never dripped on him. It never touched him. It was far enough not to get him tamei.
It's funny you mentioned that because Pinchas wasn't a Kohen
right
at that moment.
But when he mentioned it to Moshe Rabbeinu, he said this needs to be done. What does Moshe Rabbeinu tell him? You noticed it, you do it. Why? Why does he say that to him? Because Moshe Rabbeinu, if he would have done it, he would have been tamei.
So I think also Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't sure what to do. I'm not sure what the reason is. That there might have been some kind of minor punishment involved, but he forgot in that moment what needed to be done, or he was lost. And when he went to Moshe, right, and Pinchas.
So if anybody would have done
Pinchas
it,
said that you taught us. I think that kanoi and poigamer, that when something like this happens, someone who is a kanoi, who is zealous, is allowed to kill a person like that. So
he tells him, you noticed, you do it. But because of that, Pinchas has a merit to become a Kohen afterwards. From his lineage would be Kohanim. But that happens at the time of the dynasty of David, King David's dynasty.
What? No. Pinchas was a Kohen right away.
No. He wasn't Kohen yet.
He became a Kohen.
He became Kohen after.
Yeah.
After the whole incident. But Kohen got like the family that becomes who gets the chest plate. Right. But that goes from his lineage, but that starts at the time of King David. When the dynasty changes from Shaul HaMelech to King David.
Okay, I remember learning. I think we might have mentioned here. I'm not 100% sure.
Probably did.
But that the Chashmonaim, I think the Chashmonaim's family perhaps comes from Pinchas, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't remember. But there's something about how eventually the Kahuna Gedola was going to come back. Went from one family, then came back to a different family, but I don't remember the details.
There was something I wanted to mention about 2 weeks ago about Parsha Korach. We were talking about Korach and we were talking about all the things that have happened. What I forgot to mention, and I really wanted to mention, is the fact that everything that Korach did and everything that he went through, if he wouldn't have done that, there's a chance that the Leviim wouldn't have the role in the Beit HaMikdash as they did if he wouldn't have gone through all the things that he did.
Why?
Because the Leviim got a special role in the Beit HaMikdash thanks to what the uprising of Korach. If Korach wouldn't have done that, they probably wouldn't have such a significant role in the Beit HaMikdash.
Well, at the time of the Leviim already had jobs.
So they had a job during the Mishkan, but that was the beginning of everything. But during the Beit HaMikdash, they weren't entitled to do any of those things. If Korach wouldn't have done the whole uprising, they wouldn't have get that role.
Where'd you see this?
I believe the Zera Shimshon talks about it.
I'd love to see that. Wow.
Because there's a lot of times in the desert when we asked for water, then wells opened up. When we asked for food, then quail came.
What you're saying is when there's an issue raised, so then once it's raised, so then it's addressed.
Right. So the fact that Korach had the uprising, it was addressed, and the Leviim got a significant role in serving Hashem. But they lost land. They didn't have any land that they would inherit.
Okay, so that's a very interesting perspective.
Leviim don't have an inherited land.
No, I know, but I'm saying that the sequence of how it might have been very, very different had the story of Korach not happened. Very interesting. Okay, I'm going to bring something from the Rebbe about Bilam.
Mm-hmm.
What it says in Rashi is that Vayachavish es hasoinai. That when it comes in the pasuk it says Vayachavish es hasoinai, and Rashi says that Bilam, even though he was important, he saddled his own donkey. Why? That shows shehasina mikalkelas ashura. Hatred makes people go off the norm, right? And we see because Bilam, he would have had any lowly servant saddle his donkey. He saddled his own donkey. He hated the Jews so much, he wanted to curse them that he did it himself out of excitement. But Hashem said, Rasha, kvar kdomcha Avraham Avihim. Avram, their forefather, already preceded you. He did it before you. So the simple explanation of this is very simple. You decided you because you're so hateful to curse them, therefore you saddled your own. But he, out of love, when I told him to bring his son as an offering, he also went and saddled his own donkey in order to bring his son. So he did it out of love, and that's going to protect them. The Rebbe asks a question: how is that the same? It's totally different. Avram did it out of love, and Bilam did it out of hate. So, right? What's the connection? What's it saying here that he beat you, but they're not the same? How are you putting Avram and Bilam in the same place? So the answer is Bilam was trying to. It wasn't just that he, like an impulse. He was actually trying to accomplish something here. He was trying to just the same way that he was, Mikalkas, sure, he was going off the way the world works and the way things are intended to be. He was trying to invoke anger in God. As we know, he knew the exact moment when Hashem gets angry, and for those days Hashem actually didn't allow for that moment to occur to protect the Jewish people.
But Hashem actually did it so he wouldn't get...
Right. Meaning, God forbid, if, let's say, Hashem would have let it go like normal, right? If God would have allowed that every single day, there's a tiny moment when Hashem gets angry, Hashem would have allowed...
No, that's why we got man.
What do you mean?
Okay, that moment that Hashem gets angry, why did he get angry? The moment when the sun just comes up and you see the first rays of light, Hashem would get angry. Why? Because it would remind him that there were pagans that believed in the rays of light, because all the vegetation in the world would grow from the rays of light, and that would remind him and the pagans would believe that they're fed through the light of the sun.
Okay.
So that would invoke jealousy in Hashem. But what did Hashem do to counter that? He fed us man, so we wouldn't rely on anything in this world.
No, okay.
You understand what I'm talking about?
Okay, that explains it. What I'm saying is that Hashem eliminated that moment of anger in those few days in order for Bilam not to be able to do that. So this is part of that effort. What Bilam was trying to do was remind God of how the Jews also went off the correct path.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They were supposed to be in line, right? And when they got the Torah, and instead they served the golden calf. So that was he was trying to invoke anger from God as a with the reminder of going off the path. So the answer to that is they already have a merit that trumps what you're trying to do. They have a merit that totally demolishes what you're trying to do. What is that Avram Avinu? Because before he went out of line, out of love, therefore I will also go out of line. And in love for them instead of in anger. So that kind of explains it. And what we learn from this is that when it comes to sins, and this is very beautiful, that there's a way of serving God which is regular, the regular path, the regular, normal, conventional way. Sins are unconventional, right? They go off the path. How do you fix that? How do you combat that? By serving God in a way which is higher than intellect, higher than order. And there's a certain level of tshuva where you go beyond everything that is normal and you serve God from a level that's higher than intellect. And tshuva, we know, is higher than everything else.
Beyond logic.
And so out of love, when you do, and there's a level of tshuva me'ava. When you do that level of tshuva, that totally demolishes any type of deviation, right? When you deviate it negatively, when somebody deviates negatively, so to fix that, you have to deviate in a holy way and go beyond. So that's what
that's powerful.
Yeah,
I heard the same lecture from, you guys probably never heard of him, Rabbi Bulichnik.
What's Bulichnik?
He's a Chabad rabbi. He's also a Baal Tshuva, but he became a Baal Tshuva later on in his life. He was super wealthy, lost it all, and became a Baal Tshuva. Moved to Israel and lives in Israel. Every morning goes to the Western Wall and prays for everybody that watches his
live stream.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Wow.
So I made it my business to put my name out there. I was like, dude, I'm in there with you. Great rabbi.
I'm gonna roast Ilya right now. I'm just letting you know. What Ilya did was he just opened the laptop and went back to sleep.
That's not true. No, I love his lectures, but all his lectures are in Russian.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. I prefaced it. I said, okay. It's funny you mentioned Israel going to the Western Wall. I just think I'm hoping to move to Israel sooner than later. Who knows?
But you speak Hebrew already. It's easier.
Yeah. Okay. So all the more reason for me to go. What I'm saying is that when you're in Israel, it's like when you want to choose where to live, it's almost like you have to choose, like, do I go to Tzfas where I can go to Arizal's mikveh every day? Do I go to Yerushalayim where I can go to the Western Wall every day? Do I go to Tveria or like all these different places where it's like you have so many places to pick from?
It's hard, yeah.
You don't know where to pick.
And they're super expensive too. Life in Israel is expensive.
Jerusalem is crazy, and I think Tzfas used to be cheap, but now even Tzfas is like super high in demand. Yeah, it's
all of Israel, no matter where you live, it's super expensive.
I mean, you could go to places like Beersheba, which is cheaper. There are places that are cheaper, but
but you're gonna be surrounded by whom?
Well, by the way, people, I don't know, like everyone I speak to, this is like kind of going off topic, but everyone I speak to about Israel, they're like, yeah, it's so expensive, and it is expensive. It is expensive, but for some reason, everyone thinks going to Israel, they want to live like the car and the this and the that and that, like. You can get by in Israel if you don't want to live a lavish life, and people who are lucky enough to have a remote job where they can make dollars, like really
Israel is so tiny, but there are neighborhoods where you go walk into the neighborhood and it smells so bad, like a rotting carcass, and I'm like, what third world country am I in? How did I end up here? And this is still part of Israel. How?
Well, let's put it this way: Israel has everything in it. And, it has the greatest and it has the worst. That's just what it is. Okay.
Stray dogs running around. I was like, what in the world is going on? Stray dogs.
I don't know where you were. I mean, I'm sure there are parts in Tel Aviv that are like that. There are some trashy parts of Tel Aviv, some really nice places in Tel Aviv. There's, all over Israel. I don't even like. I don't know Israel that good, but there's really trashy neighborhoods too. Okay, so here we're going to go into the question that everybody asks, the famous question. It has to do with the name of the parsha. Can you? I want to see if I want to see Ilya's critical thinking skills.
What's the question?
Well, why is it named after a
Russia?
Exactly. The question is like, why is this parsha named after a Russia? Right, the names of the parsha are holy, and why would such a wicked man have the merit to have his name. And we actually see that there's 5 parshiot that have names of people.
Okay.
Noach, Yisro, Korach, Balak, and Pinchas, which Pinchas is the next
Okay.
weeks. But the question is, all those other 4 people, even Korach, who's a tzaddik, he went against Moshe Rabbeinu, but to have a parsha named after him is not such a crazy thing. Balak, out of these 5 people, was a wicked man. The rest were holy people.
But we could go. The answer is within what you just said. What you said before.
That what?
Hashem will anybody that blesses you will be blessed, and anybody that curses you will be cursed.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless of what Balak would do, the curses will turn into blessings. And no matter what he does, eventually, at the end of it all, what did he do? He blessed the people. He didn't try to bless the people. He tried to do everything opposite of that. But the end result was he still blessed us. At the end of it all, we still got a blessing from him one way or another. And at some
That's
point,
an interesting perspective.
and at some point, he comes to a realization that he's completely powerless and it's all Hashem. He comes to that realization at the end of it all.
Well, so part of it's funny you say that, because part of the question is, if you're going to name it after anybody, it should be named Bilam. Because Bilam was the one who was, the whole parsha is filled with his prophecies of blessing.
Okay.
So if you're going to name it after any wicked man, why not Bilam?
Well, at the end of the day, if you who, okay,
and not only that,
if there was a murder committed, who is blamed? The person who does the murder, or the person who ordered the murder? Who deserves the death sentence?
It depends on what law you're talking about. I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, you're
from a judicial point, from a religious standpoint, who deserves the death sentence?
I think the one who did the crime is the one who's guilty at the end of the day.
100%. So who did the crime and who did the instigating?
Bilam was the one who did the act, who tried to
do the crime, right? But who did the instigating?
I mean, Balak.
So there you go. So he's the head of the problem.
Okay, so that's but it doesn't answer why, number one, it's even named after a wicked person. Right? Meaning, why at the end of the day is this a wicked person? Yay, you have a motorcycle.
Okay.
I just don't like when they make noise, even though we chose to do it here. And not only that, Bilam at least was a Navi, and we know that his prophecy says in actually one of the Midrashim that he reached the place of prophecy even the same level of Moshe Rabbeinu. So obviously it was not for a good reason.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually to show that what happens when you give someone like him and idol worshippers a prophet. So the answer is that this is the Birkas of Raham. That I think he was a Talmud of the Shalah, but I might be mixing up with somebody else. I don't know. He answers like this: that because he ended up bringing 42 korbanos for God, he brought 42 korbanos, right? And because of that, we know that he got the reward for that. That who came out of him? Rus.
Really?
Yeah. Balak Melech Moav. And Eglon also was a later king. He also, because he stood for, this is interesting, Ehud went and killed Eglon. It's actually interesting how he did it. Because he was a lefty and lefties were very not common, they would always check on the left side of a person for the sword. It's funny because now, how hard is it to just pat someone down on both sides? But they would check someone where they would hold their sword. So they checked him on his left side, but he was a lefty, so he held it on his right side. And I guess it was a smaller sword. And when he came in, so when he mentioned Hashem's name, Eglon stood up, and when he stood up, Ehud went and stabbed him. I think because it was in order to save the Jewish people from the oppression, or maybe war. I don't know. I don't remember the exact story, but it was in order to save the Jewish people. And because he stood up for Hashem's name, he also had the schus that Rus came out of him. So this is a similar thing. Imagine, Mashiach comes from Rus. So it comes out that Mashiach, who came from Shlomo, and it says about Shlomo that he's going to bring 1,000 karbonos to Hashem. So because he brought karbonos, Shlomo comes out of him. And eventually Mashiach comes out of him. So also here we see that because he did something good for Hashem, and when it comes to wicked people, Hashem gives them payment in this world so that he doesn't have to give them eternal reward in the world to come. So therefore, his parsha is named after him, which is quite an interesting answer, and also gives some perspective that no matter what, when a person does something good, he's rewarded for it.
So does that mean we should be worried if we win a lottery tomorrow?
So,
or you have a huge lump of money, cash coming your way, we should be worried?
Well, you might as well ask, if we have a good life, should we be worried? If we're not suffering every moment of our life.
Right.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Actually, right now we're learning in Tanya the different types of atonement. Number one, teshuvah is just a moment's choice. Teshuvah is just a matter of leaving the sin and saying, I'm going to change. And then there's fasting, and fasting is a way of giving a carbon to Hashem, and there's also, there is suffering, but we ask Hashem to forgive us without the suffering. And nowadays, we give tzedakah, because since we're not strong, if we fast, instead of it helping us, it's going to make us do less of avodas Hashem. We're not going to have the energy. We're not going to pray and learn like we're supposed to. We're not going to have energy to work and take care of our families and do everything we have to do. So instead, we give tzedakah, which that's the same thing as whole point of fasting was, it was like a korban, because you're taking the blood, right? This is the blood in the base of mix. You're taking your flesh and you're giving it up to God. So here, because we can't do that, now you do that with money, which you could have used for food. And the more you give, the more, right? So that's why you're allowed to give more than 20% nowadays, because when it comes to your life, you would give everything for your life. Right. So therefore, there's no real limit on giving tzedakah.
The reason why I asked that question is because the concept of money and the concept of food and poverty has changed, especially nowadays in the past 70, 80 years. Whenever you're talking about biblical times, poverty was a real thing. Nowadays, poverty is not such a real thing.
Well, I mean, poverty, it's still difficult, but I mean, basic living, just having a sink and a toilet and modern inventions, makes our life so much more
less complicated, right?
It's so much better than kings from way back. Definitely. So we have a lot to be grateful for. But the thing is, we know that when that suffering cleanses, but we don't ask for it, right? What we could do is give tzedakah, and the more tzedakah we give, the better it is for our neshama, and even for our physical living.
Or spend an hour in a sauna or something.
Well,
that was a joke, guys. That was a joke.
Yeah. Now, just something interesting to point out: Parshas Balak doesn't have any mitzvahs in it, which is not the only part that doesn't have any mitzvahs in it. Other part also, but we still learn a few things from here. So, number one, we learn first of all, there's beautiful blessings in it, but we also learn the idea of respecting a shul, even if it's no longer in use, if it's abandoned. It says, "Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkanesecha Yisrael." So, how great are your tents, Yaakov, and your dwelling places, Israel? So, ohalecha is talking about. They're both talking about shuls. One of the ways to interpret is a shul, a place of praying or learning, and ohalecha is talking about when it's built, right? B'yeshuva. And Mishkan Esech is talking about even b'churbanan, that you're not allowed to go ahead and, let's say, open up. There's certain things you're not allowed to do in a shul, and you're still not allowed to do certain things even in a shul that was abandoned or destroyed.
Okay, it's funny you say that, because in Queens there was a humongous shul, and eventually a lot of people moved out, so they weren't able to sustain it. So they came and they turned it into a mosque. Muslims came and they bought it out. 2 or 3 years later, Thank God the neighborhood came to their senses, I guess. They came and they offered them 3 times the money to buy it back. And I remember that conversation because the conflict was they said, we're buying it back for almost 3 times the money. Why are we making them rich, putting money in their pocket? And then the argument was, it's not like you turn into a church where we can't buy it back because Avodah Zarah was done there. So it was a place of worship, so we have to respect it. And it's in our neighborhood. We can't believe that we even gave it to their hands. We have to get it back no matter what. And they took it back.
Interesting. I mean, there's a lot to be said about the halachas of, let's say, you mentioned the church. Even a church can, there are ways to convert it back into a shul. I mean, you might have to, break it down, and obviously you have to get rid of any, I mean, there are stories. There's a story. I don't know if you ever heard of this in many times you gave haircuts, but there's a place in New Jersey where it's a big yeshiva, and it used to be, I think, some kind of monastery, and there's some. I mean, people made horror stories out of it, like totally non-true story. But there was some stuff that were going on, and it had to do with because there were, some stuff that they didn't take care of, they didn't realize, and they had to get rid of it.
Happened in 5 towns.
What was that?
In 5 towns, they built a synagogue, and
Uh-huh.
then somebody came. Somebody was supposed to give some big makubal was supposed to come and give a lecture or something like, or people were supposed to come see him or something like that.
Mhm.
He came and he said, "I'm not going into that building." I said, "What do you mean? This is a place of." He said, "I'm not going into that building."
He felt something.
And then they said, "Why?" He said, "You realize what land you build a synagogue in? You realize that this was a cemetery. People were buried in this land. It's like you can't build anything on top of it, and especially not a synagogue." So he refused to go in. I think it was in 5 towns. A couple of years ago, I heard about
It's
this.
very interesting. And so what happened? What did they do?
I'm not sure what they did. I think they had to take down the whole building.
Oh, wow. That's the interesting, right? Because if you have a shul on top of a cemetery, that's interesting.
You're not allowed to. You're
Well,
not allowed
there's
to build in the first place.
There's a few reasons why you can't. But
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. I didn't know that. And okay, so thank you for that little tidbit. And next thing is also we see the importance of not cursing. We see the power of words, and we know that Bilam's, like we said earlier, Bilam's curses could have worked if Hashem didn't protect us. And also in Moreh Nevuchim from the Rambam, so it's fun. The Rambam has many different works. Moreh Nevuchim is one of those which are one of the more interesting ones. I think one of the Rabbeim said about it that if you have to have a zayd in a cup, like a silk head, in other words, a very refined head to be able to, understand nuance, and an eyes in a boich. You have to have a strong stomach. If you have eyes in a cup,
a strong head and a weak stomach.
A head a head like lead, or metal. You don't get, you can't do it. And zayd in a boich and a delicate stomach. Don't read it.
Right.
I think it was Moreh Nevuchim, but I hope I think I heard this from Rabbi Gazinski. I think it's his name. Anyway.
Just to put things in perspective, guys, Bilam was also the top magician of Egypt. At the time when Moshe Rabbeinu was a baby, it was Bilam's idea to put him to the test, to put the coals and the gold, and to see whether he was the baby that was supposed to bring a revolution to Egypt. The only one that opposed them was Korah, Yisro. And because he opposed them, that same night he had to run away from Egypt because he knew that he will have his head on a platter. So Bilam's conflict with Moshe Rabbeinu started way before all of this.
No. By the way, so I'm going to go to the comments right now. You asked earlier about where the hater was. And my brother's like, who? Bud B?
Bud B.
Bud B. Okay, it's oh, here's interesting. So this is what I was thinking of. The Targum Yona's son says that Bilam is Lavan, and he lived all those years. So Lavan and Bilam are actually the same person, which is very, very interesting because that means that the Jewish people, that means the Jewish people are his own descendants. So that's weird. Okay, he says the Chumash makes a point to mention that Bilam's donkey is an asin, which is a she donkey.
Yes.
Okay, you did mention that. And let's see. So he just mentioned some of the parshas that don't have mitzvahs, Chayei Sarah, and told us also Noach, I think, doesn't have, although maybe you could say Pru or Vu has. Oh yeah, I think I'm wrong about Noach. Okay, that is what we're going through now when it comes to the comments. And so, anyways, going back to Mer Nevuchim, which is why we mentioned this whole thing. Mer Nevuchim, he learns from there that you see the fact that Bilam was rebuked for hitting the donkey. You learn from here, Deraisa, from the Torah, you're not allowed to cause pain to animals, which is very, very interesting. Yeah, that's what we got over here when it comes to just the parsha and what we learn from it, as far as even though there's no mitzvahs. Now, here's something really, really interesting.
What part of your neshama is in your blood? Nefesh, right?
Well, nefesh is the lowest, yeah.
Right, nefesh. So animals have nefesh.
Well, yeah, everyone has nefesh, yeah.
Right.
That needs a new battery. So, what do you have
time.
anything? What?
You said that last time. You didn't get a new battery?
No, I mean it needs like battery ran out. Okay. So we're gonna go to the next thing. Chassam Sefer, he says something very, very interesting. This is actually, I never thought of this. Of course, the whole Torah is divine, but the only part which we only know because of Hashem is this parsha. Because everything else we have a connection to. From the beginning, from the Adam all the way to the end, Jews were around, or Yisrael told the Jewish people they were either
witnesses,
okay. or witnesses, or they heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that we couldn't have known is the whole exchange between Balak and Bilam, and that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
How do we know it? Only because Hashem gave it to us.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very, very interesting. Like everything else is basically something that Jewish people were witness to, entire Torah. And this also goes back to the idea of how Judaism is unique out of other faiths, where it's not just based on the testimony of one person, but it happened to our ancestors. And it's very hard to debunk something like that. It's very hard to it's almost impossible to make up a story that happened to so many people and them not challenge you, right? Because if you say, if I tell you and a bunch of other Bukharian people, like I sit in front of like even 1,000 Bukharians and say, it's a known thing that the Bukharians, they had this and this happen to them, and like none of them heard of it. They'd be like, what are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
None of us heard of this. It's never happened, right? So like, and that's already something that happened. The gap in generations here. You're saying from father to son, from father to son. The story of going out of Mitzrayim is literally generations, father to son, father to son. And so, how do you do that without people, calling your bluff? And other faiths don't have that. It's based on the testimony of one person.
Well, I was more concentrating on the three biggest magicians of Egypt, and at that time it was Balaam, Yitro, and what was the third one? The guy that got swallowed up by a whale afterwards.
Yonah,
I believe.
Okay.
So what was Yonah's punishment? Why did he get all this torture throughout his whole life? Because he stayed quiet.
You're thinking of Eov.
Eov, sorry, Eov.
Mm-hmm. Eov had a very, very difficult life.
No. There was a third magician that was there.
The people who were there were I don't know how we got back to this, but the people who were there were Bilam, Yisro, and Eov.
Eov.
Yes.
So he was a third magician.
Yeah.
But also because he stayed quiet, he lost his whole family. He went through tortures in his life.
It's kind of hard to imagine why he would deserve that just for being quiet.
Well, it goes to show you, but with what's going on today, if the world sees the tortures that are being done to the Jews, and if they stay quiet, they
Well,
will
I
face the
want to
same
I want to be
problems.
transparent. You see, the real I think the real issue that people have with the Jewish people, it's really just like almost like it's not fair. Like yeah, October 7th happened, and it was horrible, and we absolutely have a sacred obligation to preemptively strike anybody who is going to try to defeat to hurt us. But there's this protection. I actually heard a really big anti-Semite say, because like he was like, it's almost as if they have like this protection, like nobody can stop them, and like I'm sure I do a very bad impression, but and that's the thing. It's like they started off with the Jewish people, now they're paying for it, and they're crying now. So everyone's like, no, well, you can't, but all these people are dying, and they're inflating the numbers, and you can say whatever you want. But that's why people are angry, because it's like, okay, but like the Palestinians are suffering. Like, yeah, they're suffering. They decided to elect someone. They decided to elect an entity. They 70% of them, if not more, support it. And if it's going to be, this is the thing that nobody says. If it's between my children getting killed or your children getting killed, I'll tell you one thing: it's not going to be my children. Now, you have the option to not go after me, and this won't happen. And land and this, you stole land, occupied it. Yeah, sure. You tell me the people who went ahead and conquered country after country, forced everybody else to go and take your culture on and take your religion on. You're going to go ahead and call people who came back to their land after years and years. And by the way, just a side note, Hashem gave us the land. But if you don't want to believe
that's
that,
what you're missing. The fact that they don't care if their children will die.
oh,
They
okay.
don't care.
Well, they
even
care.
if they have nothing
They
to
care
gain
up
from
until
it.
they can weaponize it against
Right.
us. So 100%. But I'm just saying
They
you
have
don't.
no
You
love
don't.
for their children.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Like, the real answer is the reason why Israel belongs to the Jewish people is because Hashem gave it to us. Now, all the other answers are also correct. They're just going to challenge you on it. No one can challenge Hashem gave it to us. They just say, "Oh, it says in the book." Yeah, it does. My God told me it's mine. Go cry in the corner. Like, and it's not like we want you. It's not like we don't want you to die. We're not looking to kill you. We're not looking to eradicate you. We're just
You're
here.
starting the violence. Nobody else is.
Exactly. Very simple. And it's very simple. I also said this to somebody. I said to somebody, and they didn't like it because it was too extreme. But the point is that it's extreme. That's the whole point. If you have 1 million people coming for an innocent foreigners, coming for an innocent citizen, one innocent citizen, what do you do? What do you do? You protect your citizen. It doesn't matter how many of them they are. They're coming to kill one of your innocent people. What happened with Dina? Shimon and Levi? They didn't protest what happened, and they were all chayav misa because of that.
Mm-hmm.
This is the same thing. And again, here's the crazy. I promise you. I mean, we see this clearly. Anybody that any country that wants to make normalized ties with Israel are fine. They're fine. Why is that? Because we are looking to have a strong place for the Jewish people. We're in our land and we're strong, and we have no reason to go and make problems for other people. You want to come and bring the problem to us? Okay, we'll match you and then some. And don't cry when it happens. As simple as that. But they don't like that.
Nobody does. When it's their time to get their behinds whipped, nobody likes it.
100%. And I'm preaching to the choir because, we all. But I just, in case, it comes up, and I see people talking, and I see they miss the boat again and again. The only person who I like, even like really good people who talk about this stuff, Rudy Rachman and a lot of people who do, the Hasbara, and it's like, you're missing the point. You're coming from a place of defense. Why are we coming from a place of defense? We don't have to. I don't like somebody I saw said Israel has lost the right to exist. Okay. Yeah, do I care? Do I care what you think? Like this whole idea that Israel has a right to defend itself. It's baloney. The only person I've seen on YouTube who has such a good take on this, and who's focused on Israel. There's many people who, when they talk about the Israel subject, they're on point. But there's one person who's like, his whole thing is about Israel. Yishai Fleischer.
I don't know who that is.
Check him out, Yishai Fleischer. And this guy just, he's been on Piers Morgan, and he just spits fire.
I thought you were going to say Alex Jones or something.
he would have devoured Alex Jones. Would have devoured him. But no, he was unapologetic.
Mm.
He was like, what did he say? He was like, he said like Israel's not doing it enough. He's like, Israel's going to resettle Gaza. Or he said all these different things. Like we're not playing around. I mean, look, this is another thing that people don't realize, and we're going on a tangent here. But whenever we gave land to the Arabs, it caused more casualties on both sides. Both sides, both Jews and Arabs, more died when we compromised the safety of our borders and we gave away land. Every single time. This whole thing in Gaza would not have happened if we would have not have disengaged in 2005. I think it was 2005.
But that concept doesn't only apply to Israel. The concept also applies in the United States as well. Look at the borders. Look at what's happening.
100%.
There's a lot more casualties because of what they did.
Look,
there's a lot more money and energy and resources are being spent because of the stupidity of this administration.
Not only that, they're again, it's compromising safety and strength for other things that are not as important. You don't put somebody in a cockpit to fly a plane just because of diversity. You put the person who knows how to fly the plane in the cockpit.
Who's best qualified, right?
And that's it.
Yeah.
I remember
you don't become a president just because you're a Democrat, but you're a walking zombie. You're supposed to be better than any other candidate for you to become a president.
Yeah, I put a better Democratic candidate there.
For some reason, after 4 years, they came back to the same Sleepy Joe. I don't know why. Couldn't they come up with somebody better? Even that RFK Jr., man, even he would have done much better.
100%, 100%. Let's get back.
His only downfall is the fact that he's trying to do it as an independent instead of joining a side.
Yeah, we went way into politics. Okay, so here's a very interesting story, guys. I'm gonna have to say we're gonna have to skip out on the Haftorah and the Berkevet today, partially because I've had another crazy. This summer is just totally different than the rest of the year for me, and I want to apologize. I want to bring you guys quality, but we're doing our best.
Everybody in the chat, point your finger at him.
As long as the finger comes with $1, put $1 on top.
Make him feel guilty.
And put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
Okay. In all seriousness,
spoke like a true Republican.
Okay. I plead the fifth. So the Emek HaMelech writes, and it's also brought down by Reb Chaim Vital in a shorter version. There's a story with the Arizal. So there's a Rabbi Avraham Halevi Baruchin. He was a student of. He served the Ramak Moshe Cordovero. He was like his shamash, his assistant. And after the Ramak passed away, he served the Arizal.
Okay.
And the Arizal, by Parshas Balak on Shabbos, he went to sleep. There's an idea of sleeping. For some people to sleep on Shabbat is not a good idea, but for, especially in general, sleeping on Shabbos is a mitzvah because pleasure on Shabbos, the whole week, pleasure is not in sync with the soul, with the neshama.
Okay.
But on Shabbos, permitted, obviously has to be permitted, but worldly pleasure, sleeping, eating, all those things, enjoying this world is actually a mitzvah, and therefore the godly soul and the animal soul are in sync.
Okay.
It's very, very special, where you can just enjoying in itself as a mitzvah. And so sleeping on Shabbos, actually, for certain people, it could actually be a very special for the soul, where at that point the soul is elevated, and there's a lot of special things revealed to the soul. So he once walked into the Arizal's room, and the Arizal was sleeping, and he saw the Arizal's lips were moving. So
he woke him up.
So he like a true student, someone who truly loves Torah and tzaddikim, he put his ear next to his mouth to see if he could hear it. And then the Arizal woke up. The Arizal asked him, "What are you doing here?" So he says, "I'm sorry. I saw your lips were moving. I wanted to hear what you said." So he said that when I go to sleep on Shabbos, my neshama goes up, malachim bring me up, and they bring me to the Malach Matatrein, who's a great.
He gathers all the prayers and he brings it to Hashem.
Yeah, he's the great minister angel, and he asked me which yeshiva, which yeshiva I want to go to. They have different yeshivas, different things that are being taught in Shemayim, and he brings him there. And he has things that are revealed to him that even Tanoim, people in time of the Mishnah and the Gemara, it wasn't revealed to them.
So he says, "Can you write down what you learned?"
Listen, so he asked him, well, it's Shabbos. So he asked him,
Oh, it's Shabbos. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he asked him, "Can you tell me something?" So he said, "Even if I spoke for 80 years straight, no exaggeration, I wouldn't be able to give over what was just revealed to me about Bilam and the donkey, about this little part." So you can imagine, what the rest of the Torah has in it. Incredible. And one last thing I want to say, and we're going to finish off with, which is just something very interesting. One of the reasons why Balak wanted to destroy the Yidden was because he saw. Commercial break, guys.
To the grubber.
Now it's time to point your finger at Ilya and be upset for taking a call. I'm just kidding around. Okay, it's actually, you always have to honor your father. So yeah. Okay, so so it says that Balak saw, right? By Yar Balak Malach, I think all that Yisrael did. Yisrael was, we think it means what the Jews did, right? The nation of Israel. But another interpretation is what Yaakov Avinu did to the Amori. When Yaakov Avinu had the war that he had back then, and he said, imagine if Yaakov then, when his family was so small, and they still were able to wage war against the nation, now we're toast, right?
It was only 2 sons, and they were young.
No. But then it was the whole family.
Okay.
But the point is that even though the Yidden were told not to wage war against them, but nevertheless, he hated the Jewish people. But I guess at the end of the day, he was scared, because of that. And you see it from here. That's why it says. Number one, Vayar, and he saw.
Mm-hmm.
Why doesn't it say Vayishma, and he heard? He didn't see. He wasn't there. And it doesn't say Bnei Yisrael. It doesn't say Ha'am, the nation. It says Yisrael. So you see from here that actually
he lived throughout the whole time.
No. Not that he lived throughout the whole time. What does it mean that he saw? Because normal people didn't have historical events, but kings always had history books. They had like a chronicles of the history, and so he saw in writing what Yaakov Avinu, the documentation of what Yaakov Avinu was able to do to the Miriam back then.
Mm-hmm.
And so he saw what Yisrael, the other name of Yaakov Avinu, what Yaakov Avinu did to the Amori. So you see in the pasuk, the wording of the pasuk actually supports that not only is it talking about what the Jews did now, but he actually saw with his own eyes the written documentation of what Yaakov Avinu had done. So just something very interesting there as well. And guys, we've come to the end of the show. And before we take it out, maybe Ilya wants to add something.
Wanted to say thank you very much for joining us, and thank you very much for your patience, and you're a real legend for being with us all this time. Though it's been over a week. Well, was it a week? Yeah, it was last week. Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, it was last week, man. Time flies.
Okay, I tried to figure out another battery, but I forgot to bring the other battery, so we're going to go out.
That's the only one working?
No, the other one's working too, but it's just easier. So I'm going to just make sure that I'm not... Oh, here we go. So if you made it to the end, you're an absolute legend. Thank you for being here. And consider supporting the channel. Smash the like button.
That's right.
And
We will see
subscribe.
you next week. And good Shabbos. Thank you very much. Next week.
Yes, sir.